Somebody very deliberately murdered him. It was an execution, no mercy.
A brutal killing.
He had 5 knife wounds, with the final being in the jugular.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
There was a $15 million life insurance policy. That's motive.
He was a fraudster, a high-level con man.
Everywhere you looked in that family, there was a criminal on every branch, really. Well, who done it? $42 million and all these people that wanted him dead. That's a whodunit.
The truth will be revealed.
This is a case of a century, really. Case of a lifetime for a detective.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Greenwich, Connecticut. One of the most affluent towns in North America.
It's just the definition of luxury. If you don't have multi-millions of dollars, you would have no chance to ever live there. It's just filled with sprawling mansions, filled with very wealthy people, from CEOs to celebrities.
But no amount of money is guaranteed to keep you safe.
Andrew Kissel was discovered by the moving crew. They had been moving him throughout the course of the weekend, then came back first thing on Monday morning.
They went to the door, knock, 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 nobody is answering the door. So they tried the door and it was unlocked. One of the movers goes down to the basement to pick up an item. Next to the item is Andrew's body. He is shocked. He goes upstairs, he tells the other guys. They called their boss, and their boss said, call 911.
You heard it come over the radio, and I said, hey, Pierre, run that address. And he runs the address.
And I just remember him giving me a look like this was going to be a very interesting case.
Andrew Kissel was very successful in real estate. He was living a very lavish lifestyle. He rented a huge backcountry mansion in Greenwich. He was going out on yachts. There were parties. Beautiful life, beautiful house, wife, children, success, money.
He enjoyed the high life. He enjoyed being the big guy on the block, showing everybody a good time.
Greenwich PD homicide detectives Terry McHugh, Pasquale Iorfino, and Pierangelo Corticelli arrive at the scene.
It was a bloody scene.
He had 5 knife wounds, with the final being in the jugular.
You imagine sticking a knife in somebody, that's a terrible thing to do. Monsters do this stuff.
He was also found bound and gagged.
No mercy. Now, you know he was yelling. Had to be. Had to be, right?
They actually cleaned off the knife on his pants, wiped the blade clean and took it with them. That's professional. That's a pretty good hitman.
Your experience tells you that, number one, it wasn't a random crime. It was an execution, very personal. There's no question about that.
To solve his murder, Detectives need to uncover every significant detail of Andrew Kissel's last 24 hours, starting with his time of death.
You can tell by the position of the body and the way the blood is, and you can get an idea about how long it had been like that. And with the assistance of the medical examiner, they're able to pinpoint it to a degree. We know Sunday is the day Andrew Kissel was killed. He was probably killed in the evening.
They begin to build a picture of what happened.
There was no break-ins to the home. It wasn't forcibly entered. He obviously let the murderer in the house. First three questions out of my head was, why was he home alone? How long was he home alone? And who knew he was home alone?
We have to interview all of the people that are closest to Andrew and ask the basic information of the timeline of where they were leading up to the events of Andrew being found.
There's all kinds of fancy words for it, victimology, but bottom line is you have to learn who your victim was. Not only are you establishing the deceased timeline, but you're establishing the timeline of anyone that could be connected to this type of a murder.
Detectives track down Andrew's next of kin.
Hayley Kissel was Andrew's wife. Very smart, educated woman, making a lot of money on her own.
She was told by the detective lieutenant that there was a body in the basement, and she immediately said, it's probably Andrew. She showed no emotion. Most people show a lot of emotion, and most people want to see the body. She didn't want to know.
She wasn't grieving, she wasn't sobbing. There was no tears flowing down that face. You never know that somebody died in her family, especially her husband, that's for sure. She claimed she saw him on Saturday. She was assisting the movers. She left on Saturday. He was home alone on Sunday, and he was found dead first thing in the morning on Monday. It's just too coincidental that everybody left, and the only guy that stayed was murdered. You know, we had an issue with that. We couldn't figure out why Hayley was in such a rush to get out of there with the kids. She told us that they were actually splitting up, so she was gonna find a new location to reside in with the kids.
Hayley reveals their separation wasn't the only reason for the movers.
Andrew and Hayley hadn't paid the rent. They had $10,000 a month mansion they were living in beautiful backcountry Greenwich, and they were going to be evicted.
And that's why the movers were there. He was running out of money, and he was miserable. And it was just not a good situation.
She told us that he was using cocaine, that he drank, that he was abusive.
She knew of all of his antics. She caught him with prostitutes all the time. She was embarrassed over and over and over, I'm sure.
She was furious. Their life was falling apart. She was extremely, extremely angry.
Hayley makes a series of admissions.
On Saturday, Hayley and Andrew had a visibly loud argument, heated over money. And they argued right in front of the movers and everybody that was on site.
She also volunteered that there was a $15 million life insurance policy on Andrew. So that's motive. Hello? That's a big thing. So we said, well, tell us about that. She said, well, I wouldn't get it. Well, who would get it? It's in trust for the children, if you will. 2 hours into the interview, she gets a call on her cell phone from her lawyer. And he said, you can't talk to my client anymore.
Then all contact with her basically stopped. Now, of course, it puzzled us that she was the widow of a guy that was dead, but she had to go to an attorney to see if she could answer a question. Of course, that piques our interest. So we contacted the insurance company.
I found the insurance policy and the application that he had made. And in it, I read the kids were contingency beneficiaries, meaning on her demise. No, Hayley was the beneficiary.
That's what we call a red flag in our business.
Andrew Kissel's wife, Hayley, has landed squarely in detective sights as a person of interest in his murder.
She obviously had some tough times with Andrew, and any woman would. He was having a grand old life at her expense, really.
For the investigators, the case bears eerie parallels to another death in Andrew's family.
To make it even more bizarre, his brother had been killed a few years earlier. One day, he came home. His wife gave him a strawberry milkshake laced with sedatives, knocked him unconscious, basically, and she bludgeoned him to death, and then had his body rolled up in a carpet and put it in a storage unit.
That was a big story. And then you come with Andrew's story, right? Now you got two brothers in the same family being murdered. I think the world wanted to know if Hayley was directly involved.
The truth lies with Hayley's timeline.
Hayley Kissel was with friends down the road, actually. The family confirmed that she was there all day. She had a solid alibi on the day of Andrew's death.
We were able to trace every place she was, and she didn't leave. You know, she was not present at that murder.
The focus shifts away from Hayley and onto her dead husband's finances.
Andrew Kissel had been investigated by the FBI for a large mortgage fraud scheme.
We found out he had this real estate development company, which took legitimate properties, millions of dollars each, just to buy the property.
He would take out a multi-million-dollar mortgage, and he would submit fraudulent paperwork saying that had been paid back, when in fact it hadn't.
He now goes back to the bank, and he borrows another $3 or $4 million on the same property. He did it 9 times.
This was one of several schemes the investigation uncovered.
There was a number of properties over in New Jersey, and he had gathered a number of investors, including members of his family, to invest money in this buying of this number of buildings. He sold it, but he didn't tell anybody, and he kept the money.
He was supposed to be paying dividends to the investors, but was actually taking money from them. I remember Pat describing Andrew as a mini Madoff.
It was $42 million in money pilfered along the way. He was great at thievery.
But eventually, somebody discovered the forged documents, his crimes unraveled, and he had been caught by the FBI.
He was charged with a number of federal crimes. April 6th, he was supposed to go to federal court and be sentenced. He was facing 8 to 10 years.
If there's a number of suspects because that person has defrauded a large amount of people, definitely it opens up the suspect pool considerably. And police have to start eliminating one by one.
Well, who done it? $42 million and all these people that wanted him dead. That's a whodunit.
We obtained the whole victim list from the FBI, and it was quite a long list.
Anybody we thought lost money, could have lost money, Andrew had a negative relationship with, anything of that nature, you name it, we interviewed him.
Of the big dollar individuals that lost the greatest amount of money were all mortgage companies and insurance companies, which are all insured.
And the other people, most of them we found out were rather elderly, well-to-do people. They're not gonna kill them.
Hayley's parents were on that victim list as well.
You're talking about sweet people, nice people. Just because they had money and they were ripped off, they're gonna come after you in civil court, but they don't pick up knives and go after the guy that stole their money.
The investigation does yield an important fact, shared by all of Andrew's victims.
Even with all the millions of dollars that he stole off of these people, we found out that really nobody knew he was home alone. So now, it really limited the search for suspects to somebody in a closer circle.
They focus in on individuals familiar with Andrew's whereabouts around the time of the murder.
We came across the name Carlos Trujillo, who was his right-hand man, so to speak. For lack of a better term, he was a jack of all trades for Andrew, both in Andrew's personal life as well as in his business life.
Carlos became close to Andrew in that he drove him, he drove the children, he ran errands, he took care of things. He was like a man Friday, if you will.
In fact, Carlos was one of the only people that Andrew Kissel had left by his side. He was almost like a friend at that point because he had nobody left.
Brought in for questioning, Carlos admits to having seen Andrew mere hours before he was killed.
Carlos told us in an interview he'd had a pre-arrangement with Andrew to pick up 3 items of furniture from the house. And he was going to come down on the Sunday and pick it up. So he goes down there and he says he was there for about a half hour where he saw Andrew. He said he chatted with him a little bit. He said Andrew looked okay. He was drinking Scotch whiskey, which was his drink of choice. And he said that he had a good attitude. You know, he's concerned about going to jail down the road, but he was okay, he said. He said he then left and he went back to Bridgeport.
Carlos told us that he had left at 6 p.m. that evening. And then, of course, we have the movers coming in first thing in the morning.
So we determined he'd been the last person, as far as we knew, to have seen Andrew alive. Very important to us.
Locating and being able to interview the last person to see the deceased alive is frankly critical in every case, because at that point you can establish things like what was going on with the deceased. Were they scared? Did they say anything to the person they're speaking with? Had they learned something?
He kept on saying, I love Andrew, I love him. And not in a romantic way, but in a his friend way. He tried to maybe overconvince us that how much he admired and loved Andrew. But he kept on saying, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go, right? So, you know, we had to let him go. We looked at each other after that. We said, you know, he loves this guy. He's his buddy. What would you be doing if it was me? You know, you want to help out as much as you can. He gave us his song and dance. Why?
We kept digging, and we came to find out that Andrew treated Carlos just like a gopher. There was a report of Andrew calling Carlos on his day off, saying, I need you to come down here right away. So he leaves his family and drives all the way 30, 40 minutes down to Greenwich. And the only thing that Andrew wanted was for him to go out and get him some fast food. So it was that kind of disregard for Carlos, which didn't really fit well with Carlos's description of having a great relationship with Andrew and him being like a father figure.
Very strange, so a lot of things just weren't adding up with him. It didn't make any sense. That's a problem.
Carlos Trujillo's quick exit from his interview with detectives leaves them with more questions than answers.
So a week later, we had him in for a second interview.
And in this one, he gives us this tremendously detailed story. He said they went back to Bridgeport, but not right away. He left after seeing Andrew at 6 o'clock. He leaves and he goes down to Queens.
He said how he went to a bar, hung out with a lot of people, and danced the night away.
He says, oh, the place was mobbed. And what else did you do there? I had a couple of beers and I left.
Carlos Trujillo told investigators that he drove home in the late hours of Sunday morning, around 1 a.m.
He said he stopped at a restaurant, then brought home food for his girlfriend.
So that gave him an alibi, not placing him at the crime scene at the time of Andrew's death.
His house and his vehicle were searched, and we didn't find anything that was pertinent. His behavior going to Queens and coming back, it's not something that raised very big red flags from our point of view.
Because of the direction he took, detectives have a way to check Trujillo's story.
Easy Pass is a system where there's a monitor in your car that you pay for. And what it does, it lets you go through the fast toll lane without stopping to give the toll person any money. What it does, and it registers your car as it goes through, and sometimes takes a picture, depending on the toll booth.
We were able to subpoena those records. So we were able to verify that he was, in fact, going over the Bronx-Whitestone Bridge, as he indicated. However, there was no corresponding return trip on the Easy Pass.
So we questioned him about where he was, and he said, well, he couldn't find his Easy Pass. It was somewhere in the car, and that he had to go over a cash lane. We wanted to make sure that we understood the time frame on his whereabouts from leaving that house to Queens, back to Bridgeport. I mean, we wanted to make sure we were thorough. This is a case of a century, really. Case of a lifetime for a detective.
Determining the truth requires one of the team to sift through hours of CCTV footage.
Oh, Lord, Pierre was a rookie. Hey, that's what rookies do, all the grunt work, right?
At the time, it was still old-fashioned VHS videotape. It wasn't digital video. So I had a milk crate full of videotapes from the MTA police in their little viewing room.
He must have had some serious vision problems looking at those cameras nonstop.
As Detective Corticelli continues his search, the team discovers another potential suspect, Eric Boxerman.
So he was Andrew's friend, but he was also the man who worked with Andrew in the building business.
He's a real estate financier. He is on the social circuit in town. If you open up Greenwich magazine, you'll see him at, all of the events throughout town.
When questioned, Boxerman is forthcoming about the events of that day.
He cooperated, didn't hire an attorney.
At 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, he came to the house and observed that Andrew Kissel was drunk at the house by himself. He told investigators Andrew Kissel was laying on a couch and basically incapacitated, which tells you the state of mind of Andrew Kissel.
He is asked to explain his whereabouts during the window in which Andrew was killed.
He said he was home that night, which is right around the corner.
We asked him, did he see anybody? Did he talk to anybody? He said he saw a lady walking a dog, and that was it. So, okay.
So that was a question mark in our minds.
Anybody who has contact with the deceased the day the person died is going to be a suspect. Because you are immediately a person who has the opportunity to kill him.
Unable to verify Boxerman's alibi, detectives dig into his relationship with the Kissels.
We came to find out that his relationship with Hayley was more than just a friendship.
While Andrew was slipping out the front door, here's this guy slipping in the back door.
If you're a person who saw the deceased just before he died, and you're having an affair with the deceased's wife, you're going to be the #1 suspect. It's a volatile situation. If there's a love triangle, you just don't know how you're going to react. And you might react by crying, but you might react by committing a murder.
As more light is shed on their illicit romance, a bizarre rumor surfaces.
It hits the news that Andrew killed himself because he wanted to be a great guy and give his kids this $15 million in life insurance.
The media speculated at the time that it was potentially a suicide for hire. Who would choose to kill themselves in such a slow and painful manner? To be stabbed by a knife multiple times, in your basement, bound up. There are other ways to do it.
From a victimology point of view, everything that we knew about Andrew was all about Andrew. He was a classic narcissist. That whole idea was just crazy to us. What was interesting was News 12 was the first, I believe, to float this story based on an unconfirmed source to their tip line. Pat and Terry were able to track down the telephone number from this unconfirmed source.
The number is a cell phone tied to Eric Boxerman.
So was he floating that idea as a way to shield or protect Hayley based on his relationship with her? Were there other motives? We didn't know.
So now we got very interested in him.
A Newsline tip has put Eric Boxerman in the frame for Andrew Kissel's murder.
It was just very, very odd that his cell phone would be connected to this story of Andrew, arranging his own homicide.
Detectives weigh what Boxerman had to benefit against what he had to lose.
He was a millionaire. He owned a $13 million home. Not a shack, a $13 million home. He was a successful businessman. But he's having an affair with Andrew's wife. So, yeah, it piqued our interest. But just because somebody's having a relationship with somebody doesn't mean they're a murderer either.
The crime scene also bears none of the hallmarks of a crime of passion.
This was pretty much a professional hit. He didn't have any hits in his past.
Nothing ever put him at the scene, so we couldn't go anyplace with that.
Nothing else came back to him as that type of person that would actually kill somebody. But he put a spin on the case, and, it puzzled us.
With Boxerman's involvement looking unlikely, they reach an impasse.
We worked hard on it, we talked to all those people, and it ended up, I couldn't go anyplace. Just couldn't go.
Well, the case goes stale. Terry had retired.
My time came up. I talked about it with Pat. I said, I'm ready to go. And he says, all right, I'll finish this thing off. And so Pierre was pretty much involved in it. He got my badge, which was nice, because it kind of carries it on,
By that point, we had executed probably over 25 or 30 search warrants.
You can't be sitting in the office waiting for luck to come to you. We tried everything. We went everywhere. We never saw our families, and we were always on the move. At one point, we joked that if we put our other halves in photo arrays, we probably wouldn't be able to pick them out because we hadn't seen them in so long that we'd spend more time with each other than anybody else. Bashing our heads together, is trying to, come to a successful conclusion, trying to figure this out.
There was an enormous amount of media pressure on the police to solve this case. I know Andrew Kissel's father, frustrated with the progress on the investigation in the first few months, wrote an email to the detectives and called them the Keystone Cops, which I think really, insulted them because they were working tirelessly on this case.
So Pat had that email blown up and pinned on his bulletin board, I remember. And that was one of those things that was driving him to show the father that we had not given up and we were still going to go at this as best we could and solve the case.
After countless hours viewing CCTV footage, Detective Corticelli makes a breakthrough.
He called me and said, "I got him." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And then he showed me the picture. It was like unbelievable, clear as could be, Carlos Trujillo coming through the cash line.
That system down there took one of the best pictures you'd ever want to take. It was amazing. God, he looked terrific.
So Carlos comes back across the bridge toward Connecticut. It was much sooner than he had initially admitted. Right before the time in question when Andrew was killed,
Detectives now have proof that Carlos lied about his alibi.
for that reason, we looked over everything again with fresh eyes. I remember sitting in the FBI's White Plains office with Pat and going into their evidence room where they had the evidence from Andrew's case. I believe it was 25 or 26 banker boxes full of documents that we went through with a fine-tooth comb.
It didn't seem like Carlos Trujillo really had any reason why he would want to see Andrew Kissel dead. But investigators began to realize that Carlos was not just his driver, but was involved in some of Andrew Kissel's business deals, money changing hands, part of this mortgage fraud scheme.
And then you had his own brother, George Trujillo, that had power of attorney on many of the properties that were illegally sold. He was right involved with that. You had Carlos's girlfriend, Dela. Dela was Andrew Kissel's accountant for all the frauds. So she was directly tied in the whole case. It was like the entire Trujillo family tree, and it was a criminal on every branch, really.
Carlos's motive slowly comes into focus.
Andrew was going to be pleading guilty, and then he was going to be fully sentenced. But he could have implicated other people. And based on that, the people that would be most likely to be in peril would be Carlos, his family members, and the people that were directly involved with Andrew's business.
It's damning evidence, but detectives need direct proof of a murder plot. They scour the materials gathered from Carlos's home.
We found credit cards with different people's names in it, and one happened to be Amita Trujillo. And so I say, hey, who's Amita Trujillo? Let's find out who it is.
They track down her address in Waterbury, Connecticut, 57 miles from Andrew's home.
I say, Pierre, let's go. We have to go to Waterbury. We're headed to see this Amita Trujillo. I wanted to go poke at the hornet's nest, because that's what we do. Waterbury is a tough neighborhood, and it's the opposite of Greenwich. It's a bunch of blue-collar workers struggling to make things work and just trying to work hard for their money. We get around the back of the house. We start banging on the back door. I hear somebody yelling from the second floor, "Hello, hello." I said, "Hey, how you doing? It's the police. I need to talk to you." So she comes out, and we start talking to her. And we showed her a picture of Carlos. So she says, "Yeah, that's one of my cousins. Yeah, I know him." And I said, "Here to talk about a homicide." And she says, "You mean they killed that rich Jew guy?"
Detectives interviewing a cousin of Carlos Trujillo have unearthed more than they expected to find.
And he said, "Oh boy, here we go." I said, "Well, tell us some more." She goes, "Well, my half-brother, Lenny, was at a 4th of July party last year, and this guy, Carlos, the guy in the picture, came up to him and offered him money to kill his boss." She said that Carlos said that he'd stole $500,000 from the boss and he wanted it back, so they needed to get him killed. And then she heard another story that he was ill and wanted to die. All kinds of different stories. But in the end, it was Carlos killing his boss.
It's an astonishing tale. Detectives zero in on Lenny Trujillo.
Now we gotta fill in the rest of the blanks. Just because you know something, you gotta be able to prove it. Lenny, believe it or not, is a naive simpleton. Lived in Worcester, Massachusetts. Just recently had a kid. We really need Lenny to tell us everything that happened, that transpired between him and Carlos. So we push him.
So Lenny Trujillo said that basically Carlos approached him and said that this guy that he worked for, this rich guy in Greenwich, wanted to die. And he basically was going to hire him to help do it for some cash and a computer.
He was surprisingly cooperative. He said that his whole intention was to play Carlos for his money. He was going to take whatever money he could from Carlos, and that would be that.
Lenny admits he and Carlos worked long and hard planning the crime.
This was 6 months, 8 months in the works. They would meet at parking lots, on rest stops, on highways, and Carlos would give them more money. They continued to plan it and plan it and plan it. He told us that Carlos put him up in a hotel. We were able to go there and find records that Carlos paid for a room there on a credit card and that Lenny stayed there, and we had both their signatures on receipts. The next morning, they drove down to Greenwich. And he described Greenwich, he described certain stores in Greenwich.
This was detailed information that a kid from Worcester, Massachusetts could not have come up with on his own. It's pointing directly to the conspiracy between Lenny and Carlos to commit this murder. And he said the plan was to tie the victim up, bring them down to the basement, and stab them. So by virtue of that, we were able to know immediately that he was telling us, you know, at least in those parts of his story, the truth. Lenny admitted to 90% and wouldn't go to that extra 10% of actually having committed the murder or being there when Andrew was killed.
Despite lacking a full confession, it's enough to finally complete the picture of what happened in the hours leading to Andrew Kissel's murder.
Our timeline is so essential to everything that took place on the last day. On his one day off on a Sunday, unbeknownst to Andrew, Carlos decides he's gonna drive all the way down to Greenwich just to say hello. He just wants to see how Andrew's doing.
When he left Andrew, he went down I-95 as he's going into New York, turns his cell phone off, according to his cell phone records. He uses an easy pass to go across the Bronx-Whitestone Bridge, but then within less than 2 hours, takes the cash lanes to cross back into the Bronx from Queens. So Carlos comes back with Lenny to Greenwich, Connecticut. He now is let into the house by Andrew because Andrew knows him.
They might be having a drink together. They definitely did some coke. Then, one way or the other, they took him downstairs to the basement.
They gagged him, and they tied him just like Lenny told us he was gonna do. They put him down on the ground. They made it nice and quiet.
I imagine that they held him with one hand and took a knife and 5 times plunged it to the hilt, 3 of which were kill shots. 2 in the aorta, 1 in the carotid.
After committing the murder, we believe they left the home. Carlos could have driven Lenny back home and then went back home to Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Confident in their case, Detectives Iorfino and Corticelli track Carlos down.
We found him a couple towns up driving a limo. And we stopped the car. I came walking up with Pierre. Hey, remember me? It's time. You're under arrest for homicide.
When they finally arrested Carlos and Lenny, they used my handcuffs that I was issued in 1965 and still had. They put my handcuffs on both of those mutts. And they put them on a plaque, and they gave them to me. I got it at home. It's fabulous.
On April 15th, 2011, Lenny Trujillo is sentenced to 20 years in prison. Carlos Trujillo pleads down, and after serving a sentence of 6 years, he is deported to Colombia.
Carlos only had 6 years, and I felt a little slighted by that. But when I realized that he was getting deported, as an immigrant myself, I love the mainland and my homeland, but I never want to go back to live there. I like it right here. So he could never come back here. He got a life sentence. His brother George went back to Colombia. Stella Tafur was Andrew Kissel's accountant. She disappeared. Who knows what happened to Stella? Money was everything to Andrew Kissel. That's how he got himself in this predicament to start with. He stole $42 million, owed a lot of people money, but did he deserve to get stabbed to death like he did? No.
In the end, if you do a good police job, it all comes out. And we did a good, thorough job, and we put our hearts into it, and it came out.
The sheer brutality and sadistic nature of what went on that morning in that house. It's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life.
A brutal killing.
She had 80-something stab wounds on her. That amount of rage is usually going to be somebody very close to the victim.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
They're telling me about how their mother has 2 boyfriends.
It's kind of a sugar daddy relationship.
She kept yelling, "No, don't come to my house."
The truth will be revealed.
Everything told me that something wasn't right here and that it wasn't over.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. 20 miles east of Atlanta lies the sleepy town of Conyers, Georgia.
It's just a short distance from the heart of the city, basically. But it still, in a lot of aspects, still has kind of a small town community feel.
We're a very safe community, very little violence. We probably have maybe 1 or 2 homicides a year. It wouldn't be unusual to go a year without a homicide.
But on a calm January afternoon, a piercing noise cuts through the neighborhood.
I got a phone call to report to the chief's office. It was around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Chief let me know that there had been a homicide and that currently the Rockdale County Sheriff's Department was on scene.
Twins, Jasmia and Tasmia Whitehead, have made a horrific discovery.
There happened to be a deputy just driving by who they flagged down.
The twins ran up to the side of the car and literally beat on the side of the car, screaming that they had found their mother dead.
For Commanding Officer Jackie Dunn and Lead Detective Ken Swift, it's their first murder of the year.
When we first arrived, there was already a number of officers cordoning off the scene, and there were 2 young girls in the back of the van crying hysterically.
But you have these 2 very sweet-looking little girls traumatized.
One of the twins was biting the inside of her forearm. She said, "It's just a nervous habit. I do it when I'm nervous." It was heartbreaking to watch. You want to be sensitive to their emotional state. And so you treat them with kid gloves. You're very delicate in the way that you approach things.
The twins direct police to the location of their mother's body. 34-year-old Nikki Whitehead.
When you walked up to Nikki's home, you see chaos. Stuff had all been thrown about. You see overturned chairs, broken vases on the floor, and you see and smell lots of blood.
You could smell it like, you know, the rust off of a penny. It was really, really strong. Nikki was where the daughters said they discovered her, just off the master bedroom, in a jacuzzi-like garden tub with water in it.
And she's laying partially submerged with her head out of the water.
Finding her naked and deceased in the tub full of water, all of that immediately calls your attention to a violent struggle of some sort. The sheer brutality and sadistic nature of what went on in that house. It's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. There's no way to really prepare for it, but at the same time, you do have a job to do that is important, and that ultimately comes first.
The sheer violence of the scene gives detectives an insight into her killer.
Nikki had 80-something stab wounds on her. That's a lot of rage. Statistically, that amount of stab wounds, that amount of rage, is usually going to be somebody very close to the victim.
They must now determine what took place during Nikki's final 24 hours.
Piecing or reconstructing the last hours of somebody's life prior to us discovering their body is vital. It allows us to basically construct a timeline of the last people who were to see her alive, and then go from there as far as eliminating individuals or focusing on individuals that may or may not have been involved. With the twins being the ones who discovered their mother, we wanted to interview them, find out what they saw, and begin that aspect of the investigation. We bring them into the room, and they're both, Jasmine and Tasmaya, are extremely sorrowful. They are crying. They are inconsolable, as you would expect for young teenage girls to discover their mother deceased. I didn't want to leave them alone. Nobody would have wanted to leave them alone.
Police begin softly, aiming to discover more about their mother.
We learned that Nikki was a hairdresser, and that she was also attending Bowder College, which is a fashion college. So she had aspirations of doing more than just hair. She loved the twins, and Nikki had them involved in cheerleading and dance. Their grades were all A's, exceptional students.
The interview then shifts focus to the last time the twins saw her.
They told me that the night before the murder, Nikki had come in from, their words, partying.
And then when they woke up the next morning, they got ready for school. And when they knocked on their mother's bedroom door, she did not answer. And so they left for school as they normally did. They said that they had not seen their mother at all that morning.
We know she is dead at about 4 when the twins get home from school.
That leaves an 8 to 9 hour window for the attack. As the questioning continues, the crime scene is also being processed.
It was almost impossible to make your way through the living room without stepping on something. Everywhere you looked, everywhere you turned, there was evidence of a struggle. Everything has to be photographed. Everything has to be cataloged and accounted for, so you're very conscious about where you step and how you proceed through the crime scene.
It's incredibly important to collect as much evidence as possible. Even something that may seem inconsequential, you don't know what it means until the investigation is advanced and you have more information.
You could see she's got her back to the wall and goes from one end of the wall all the way down to the other, and you can tell it's a battle. You can see that she made it to the back door. You can see her blood grip on the door handle. She tried to get out. The door was locked. And then you can finally see at the frame to her bedroom door where she's holding on to the wall, and then you can see the blood streaks as she grips the wall and slides down. And that is the largest concentration of blood. And that's the fatal area, we think. Looking at the carpet, you can see where she was drugged, blood streak going into the bedroom.
As far as the house itself, there were not your normal indicators that you would find in instances of a forced entry, broken locks, or a kicked-in door, or broken windows.
So we knew that whoever had been in there had been allowed into the house.
The twins then say that when they arrived back at the house, it was locked.
I came through the door, I put my key in, I just turned it, and I opened the door.
When a woman is killed, oftentimes the first person police look at is her boyfriend or her partner or her husband. And the reason for that is because it's the person they're closest to, and that's the person with the most motive.
Well, we learned that the girl's biological father pretty much disappeared not long after their birth. They knew of him, but he had moved to Canada.
He was eliminated from any sort of person of interest, right away.
But the girls say there is a man in Nikki's life.
The two girls told us about Robert Head and the relationship that he had with their mom. That he was a truck driver that was gone for long periods of time, but that he owned the house and that they were allowed to stay there. The age difference between them was significant. I believe it was around 20 years. It's kind of a sugar daddy relationship that the girls were aware of. A unique relationship, to say the least.
The twins then provide another key detail, which gives Robert a potential motive.
Does your mom have any other friends or anybody else that come over that you know of?
Talked to a lot of men. Talked to some men, but the only one I've been hearing her talk to lately is Joe.
When police are investigating a case of someone who was sexually involved with another individual, and they realize that there is some sort of love triangle going on, they will pursue that angle and they will investigate it, and they will see if possibly they'd rather have that person dead than have them with somebody else.
Robert Head was immediately a person of interest, obviously, because of his relationship with Nikki. Given the fact that there was another boyfriend in the picture, it became extremely important that we find him and speak to him.
The discovery of a possible affair between Nikki Whitehead and another man has made her boyfriend, Robert, the first suspect in her murder.
The twins said that Robert had overheard Nikki speaking to a man on the phone the night before the murder. We had to eliminate the jealousy angle.
To do so, they must first find him.
We were able to contact his employer.
He was driving his truck in another state.
They confront him with the twins' allegations.
Robert told us the night before the murder, they had argued because their agreement was she wasn't going to talk to other men in front of him. He told us that he loved her to no end, that she was his princess, but he understood the age difference and that he knew when he went out of town that if she had boyfriends, he just accepted that. But when he came home, it was him.
People have open relationships, but in every open relationship, there comes a breaking point where the person or one of the persons involved has definitely had enough.
Robert downplays the argument, but the truth lies with the timeline.
They have GPS on the truck that he drives, and so we were able to see when he left town. He was out west and would not have been possible for him to commit the crime.
Satisfied, police move on to the other man in the love triangle.
She's got a live-in boyfriend and she's got a second boyfriend, and that's definitely a relationship we was going to investigate.
Once again, Nikki's daughters provide a critical clue.
They brought up that their mother had been arguing with her boyfriend, Joe, on the phone the night before the actual incident.
This was about 3 a.m. She kept yelling at Joe, "No, don't come to my house."
This is the second fight for Nikki in her last 24 hours.
Okay. What do you know about Joe?
Like, they argue a lot because Because she was like, have a nice life, man. Yeah, because they were arguing last night.
Was it an argument that went bad? It is a viable motive for murder, and it has to be investigated.
Then, a witness from that day heightened suspicions even further.
Canvases of a neighborhood are always good in crime scenes like this and incidents like this. The neighbors revealed that there was a black car parked out front, either on the curb or in the driveway.
The car was spotted at 1:30 p.m.
We wanted to identify and find out who it belonged to.
Pretty quickly, we looked up Joe Carter, and he had a black vehicle registered to him.
Police tracked Joe down at his workplace.
Joe is a barber, and his barbershop happens to be right beside the salon that Nikki did hair at.
When we went in to speak to him, everybody inside the barbershop initially was very reluctant and dismissive of us. We said, this has to do with Nikki Whitehead. It's very important. And I guess by the tone of our voice, he understood that this wasn't just some idle questions that we had. When we told Joe what had happened, Joe's reaction was shock. And, you know, he was trying to light a cigarette and his hands were shaking. Seeing anybody's reaction to news like that is always important.
As an investigator, you're looking for the responses. Are they genuine? Are they fake? What we do is we look at it and say, that's interesting. What did they have to hide?
Joe Carter's admission to arguing with Nikki Whitehead the night before she is killed prompts police to bring him downtown.
We told him we're here to see if you're a suspect or to eliminate you as a suspect.
Joe described their relationship as somewhat rocky. It's investigation 101. You begin to probe about what the argument was, what the disagreement is, why, what was causing the tension. They had been arguing about her use of alcohol and the status of their relationship.
Joe also claims that on the day Nikki was killed, he spent the entire time working at the barbershop, over 16 miles away.
We asked him to go take a polygraph exam.
A polygraph examination, in essence, is to provide you with information only and not necessarily evidence, to perhaps corroborate a feeling or information you have. If you believe the witness is not telling you the total truth, a polygraph may help you to prove they're being deceitful about something.
But he passed, and he was not showing any deceit. We also interviewed his co-workers, who all confirmed his alibis.
His concern appeared to be genuine and for Nikki.
The one question left unanswered is the black car.
The post office had actually logged that car because if it sits in front of a mailbox too many days, then they'll write a little complaint note and put it on the car. And so we were able to determine that that car was actually visiting someone just slightly up the street a little bit and was there innocently. When you work criminal investigations, you're going to follow some leads that look hot and they're going to be dead ends.
But the neighborhood canvas turns up another lead.
Well, we were interviewing everybody that would come in, you know, what have you seen at this house? We learned that someone had seen a red car parked in Nikki's driveway during that day.
The red car is spotted at 3 p.m., right within the time frame police believe Nikki's unknown attacker gained access to the house.
The red car was important. We wanted to identify and find out who it belonged to.
We found that Nikki had a friend that drove a red car, and so obviously we go in and talk to that friend and said, hey, you know, did you happen to go by Nikki's house today? And she was very forthcoming, yes, I did. I had an appointment for Nikki to fix my hair today.
Nikki did makeup and other cosmetic work for people. They would set up appointments and come to her house. The woman, she had gone to the house, she had knocked on the door. She knocked repeatedly, thinking that maybe she was napping or that there was some other reason why she was not home. After nobody coming to the door and nobody answering, she left.
They trace the woman's cell phone records, which confirm she was only at the house for a few short minutes.
We know from looking at our scene, this was probably a 20-minute battle that she fought for her life. So we were able to eliminate her being involved with the incident. She's probably grateful she didn't go in at that time.
It's their last solid lead in the hunt for Nikki's killer.
Nikki had a business card that had her actual picture of her eyes on the business card. I kept that card at my desk because I didn't want to forget that I needed to be Nikki's advocate. It was special. I saw a woman that grew up rough, but she saw a better life. And not only saw a better life and was doing better for herself, but she wanted better for her children. I'm like, man, I wonder what's going to happen to these girls. I hope some family member is able to take care of them.
The woman the twins call Grandma is actually their 75-year-old great-grandmother, Dela Fraser. Police learn that until very recently, Dela was the twins' legal guardian.
We learned that Nikki grew up on the streets, so to speak. She was raised by Dela, her grandmother. She was pregnant with the twins at age 17.
Nikki was still present in their lives, but the main role of raising the girls belonged to Dela.
When Nikki met Robert, she became somewhat stable. Nikki wanted to provide a stable environment for him and thought she could with Robert's help.
And Nikki felt because of Dela's age, she wasn't able to provide the sort of stern rules and guidance that the girls needed at the time. The Rockdale County Juvenile Court had decided that it was important for the girls to establish a relationship with their mother. And in order to do so, they needed to move in with their mom. The two girls had just been brought back into their mom's life just a couple weeks prior to the murder.
The records indicate a fractured family history.
The relationship with Dela Fraser, being the twins' great-grandmother, was very much at odds with Nikki.
She loved the twins, and she thought it best that she raise them. The relationship had become strained.
This elevates Dela from doting grandmother to person of interest.
Family murders are more common than people think. Sometimes it's planned, sometimes it's done in a fit of rage. Despite how appalling it is to many of us, family murders tragically aren't all that rare.
When you are investigating something of this nature, you cannot eliminate anyone without having run them through, every possible scenario and vetted where they've been and what they've been doing and the nature of their relationship with the victim.
Police also learn there are other things at stake.
The situation with the two minors living with Dela, she was able to get some state assistance. So losing them back to Nikki when she lost them had been a little financial cost, and so might have been motivation.
A motive for family or domestic murder could be money, could be the loss of money. It's a very strong motivator.
A custody battle has made Dela Fraser the latest person of interest in the murder of her granddaughter, Nikki Whitehead.
One of the key traits of, I find, the more seasoned homicide detectives is separating emotion from fact. To do that, you have to look at the basics. You have to look at their motive, their means, their opportunity, and, in certain cases, it may not always be that apparent.
Dela is requested to come to the station for questioning, but shows up 6 hours later.
When we initially interviewed her, I would talk to her. I would say, what do you think? Do you think that Robert or Joe could have done this? Or do you think somebody else or somebody you can think of?
When questioning family members, it is very difficult. You have to protect your case, and you have to realize you're dealing with the victims, potentially. And your victims, being the survivors, one of them could be the killer.
Detectives need to determine not only where she was at the time of the murder, but whether Dela had the means to do it.
This is a rage killing, and that's shown in the viciousness of the attack and the number of times the mother was stabbed.
To look at Nikki's body and the amount of rage and sadistic premeditation to go through all of this.
This was a battle.
The physical limitations make it seem unlikely, so they turn to her alibi.
When we looked at Dela, we were able to put her somewhere else at the time we thought the incident happened.
We eliminated Dela as a potential suspect.
But the work involved in examining the family dynamic uncovers a new lead.
We found that there was previous incidents that had taken place at her house.
I got dispatched to a call at the house. As I pulled up in front of the house, I see Nikki running out of the garage screaming. Nikki had marks on her neck, scratches on her arms, indicative of someone that had been in some sort of a tussle.
Officer Myra Scruggs attempts to calm Nikki down.
Anytime you're involved in any kind of a domestic situation or disturbance or any kind of physical altercation, you're gonna have people that are at an elevated state of emotion. They're usually very upset, they're crying, they're yelling, they're trying to tell you what happened, which is what the case was with Nikki.
Through tears, she reveals her assailants.
She said the girls jumped on her. When I spoke to the girls, they showed zero emotion. Their faces were stoic. They were angry. The girls had no marks on them whatsoever. It was so alarming to see these stoic faces. And I've been doing this long enough to know that no one is going to have that much calm about them. Certainly not 14-year-old girls who had been in an altercation with their mother. After they went to court on the assault on their mother from my case, the girls were placed back in the care of their great-grandmother. Everything told me that something wasn't right here and that it wasn't over.
The attack on their mother, 2 years prior to her death, introduces a new pair of suspects.
In the very beginning, we had a very established timeline set by the twins themselves. They left the house at a normal time, they got to school, and then they came home. And they discovered their mom's body.
The twins' hidden history of violence drives investigators to scrutinize their account of that day in greater detail.
You look for irregularities. What's different today than happens every day? Initially, the twins told us they missed the bus, but they tell us they were able to walk to school and only missed 15 minutes of class. So I put my special operations team on foot. It's about 2.5 miles from their house to the high school, and I had them walk the route looking for any surveillance cameras between the house and the high school. I have our school resource officer pull the video at the high school.
The school surveillance camera shows they arrived at 10:15 a.m.
It's 2.5 hours later than what they're telling us. So that's our first irregularity.
That's a lie. How many times have you lied to me?
0.
The only individuals who we kept finding holes in stories and lies were the twins.
With their story now in question, police revisit the twins' original account of their mother's final 24 hours.
And the first suspicion at Joe was planted by the twins. They had alleged that Nikki had been in an argument with Joe the night before the murder. We were able to send subpoenas to the phone company and get phone records, and the phone call that she had been on was not to Joe. It was to a family friend that the family considers a relative. Once we interviewed this person, not only had he spoke to Nikki, but he spoke to both of the twins and thought all was well. Never would have guessed that a few hours later that Nikki would have been dead.
They now see, from the beginning of the investigation, the twins were in control.
They were so dedicated to getting out of that house and going back to their own lifestyle that they would have done anything. They would have told any lie to make themselves the victims.
But was this motive enough for murder?
They were given free rein to come and go as they pleased from Dela's house. With their mother, she had rules, she had curfews, she had limits as to what was allowed and what was not.
Nikki was strict on them.
Nikki could foresee that these are beautiful young girls. They were getting into boys. They were getting into a little too much partying. She saw the forest for the trees. She knew what was coming, as with any child that age. I think they're very manipulative, and they know exactly what they're doing. And it had worked for them as younger girls. You know, as you get older, you're playing adult games now. You know, everything changed.
With focus squarely on the twins, they then discover a key item hidden deep within the evidence collected from the scene.
We located a journal, and the journal had specific writings about how both Jasmine and Tasmaya felt about their mom, how unhappy they were, how angry they were with her. I mean, it was a detailed plan about what was going to happen as far as a timeline for the future.
They wrote something to the effect of, if we're ever going to get back to Dela's, it's going to have to be soon. And the other one responds, yeah, she's got to go.
Police now have written evidence implicating Nikki Whitehead's twin daughters in her murder.
These girls realized that they weren't going back, that this was it. They were going to have to live with their mother. So they made their decision. And the decision was to kill their mother.
Right now, it's just a theory. They still have to prove it.
The autopsy was able to reveal that there was actually a hair lodged in between the teeth of Nikki. That hair was matched to one of her daughters as having come from her.
The interesting thing in this case was that hair was found in Nikki's teeth. That is not someplace where you would anticipate finding DNA of a relative, of somebody that you're cohabitating with. So that's the importance of not only finding DNA, but interpreting its significance.
This connects back to something police noticed when the twins were first questioned.
We see one of them biting herself. And of course we're like, hey, what are you doing? And she said, I bite myself when I'm stressed out like this. Matter of fact, we look at those bite marks and there's a little space in the two front teeth, and we know that Nikki's got a little gap in her two front teeth. So we have an odontologist make a mold of Nikki's teeth and compare it. And that odontologist said that to a probability, Nikki bit the twin defensively as the twin had her from behind trying to break the hold.
Ultimately, the bite mark is what sealed their fate. I do believe that she left that bite mark for us.
On May 21st, 2010, the twins are arrested just before their high school graduation. Confronted with the evidence, they eventually make a stunning on-tape confession, revealing the true series of events.
The day began as the girls waking up and getting ready for school, and then getting into an argument with their mom about something minor. Something related to boys or a curfew, something of that nature. Maybe it was the resentment of going from a house with their grandmother with no rules or restrictions to living with their mother, who suddenly was enforcing these rules. Regardless, it created a hostile sort of environment and relationship between the two of them. Ultimately, it erupted into a physical fight.
She just screamed out and stopped. I had her hands, she has her feet. Kind of like a joint effort.
These two girls are now at 16. They're about her same build and stature. Nikki's a small frame woman. She's fighting for her life. The girl's choking her from behind, and Nikki just using everything that she can because she's outnumbered and out-weaponed and everything. She's doing everything she can, and she bit the twin trying to escape.
They began repeatedly stabbing their mother.
I think I picked up a knife and I stabbed her. It was multiple times.
In the head, in the neck, in the breasts, in the back.
She's just bleeding, her head bleeding, I guess from the face. And she's just bleeding everywhere. Blood on the floor.
And then, like nothing happened, the twins go to school.
And as they walk down the hall, one of them veers off from the other one to a trash can. We don't know if that was a knife. By the time we saw that video, sanitation had already picked up the school's trash, so we'll never know.
At one point, they tried to claim self-defense, but it was so ridiculous. There was no way anybody was ever going to wrap their head around a story about self-defense, given what the inside of the house looked like.
And I think it was at that moment that I realized that these girls are sociopaths. You know, how do you kill your mother and then go to school and continue your day like it never happened, and then come in the door and act like you found her that way? It's hard to imagine that your own children could inflict that upon you. It's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
In exchange for a guilty plea, the pair are offered a deal, 30 years each for voluntary manslaughter.
So those girls won't be out until they're in their late 40s, which I think that served justice. Because you had two young ladies that I think are, they're just evil.
I think most people are uncomfortable or unwilling to accept that as something that could exist in 16-year-old girls. But knowing that they did plead guilty and that they're behind bars and justice was found ultimately for Nikki, you're able to move past it.
They're ultimately where they need to be. It breaks our heart, having listened to Nikki talk about these girls and the potential for these girls, how intelligent they were, beautiful young girls. I hate it that their mother couldn't make it work, that Nikki tried her best. And I don't think she should have had to pay for that love with her life.